New Nordic.
The family of missing Broadway dancer Zelig Williams making an emotional plea for information on his whereabouts. Williams was last seen 2 weeks ago in the Columbia, South Carolina area.
I just want Zelig to come home. He all I got. He all I got. He all I got.
His mother, Kathy Williams, lost her 2 other children in a 2004 car accident. It's not just misinformation that is hurting hurricane victims in the South. Fake images online, also duping donors.
The image is heartbreaking and has generated countless views. A traumatized young victim of Hurricane Helene soaked to the skin, sitting in a boat holding her puppy. The problem is that the boat, the puppy, and the little girl are all fake AI-generated images blazing across social media. Officials in relief agencies say such images erode public trust and cut into support for actual storm victims.
ABC's Jim Ryan. Federal judges stopped a program that made thousands of legal voters in Alabama inactive, restoring registration status for both American-born and naturalized citizens ahead of the November elections. Justice Department sued over the program, arguing that it violates a federal law barring the removal of names from voter rolls 90 days before an election. Tennis icon Serena Williams says she had a benign cyst removed from her neck. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie. And one thing I've learned is that you buy a house, but you make it a home. Because with every fix, update, and renovation, it becomes a little more your own. So you need all your jobs done well. For nearly 30 years, Angie has helped millions of homeowners hire skilled pros for the projects that matter. From plumbing to electrical, roof repair to deck upgrades. So leave it to the pros who will get your jobs done well. Hire high-quality certified pros at Angie.com.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. News brought to you by Roof Rescue. A 27-year-old Logan man has been arrested for allegedly trying to strangle a woman during a domestic dispute, according to law enforcement. Albert Tunney was booked into the Cache County Jail on Saturday. Tunney was arraigned Tuesday in Logan's First District Court, appearing by web conference from jail. He was charged with aggravated assault, a second-degree felony, and misdemeanors for making a threat, domestic violence in the presence of a child, and intoxication. Cache County Deputy Attorney Mark Winkle explained how Logan City police officers were called to a domestic dispute on October 12th. The alleged victim claimed that Tunney had strangled her, resulting in a temporary loss of consciousness. She also described how he had cut her with a large knife. Winkle told the court police reported the woman had injuries consistent with the allegations. Judge Thomas Wilmore said he would allow Tunney to be released on bail, but ordered him to have no contact with the alleged victim. Tunney is scheduled to appear again in court October 21st. He could face up to 5 years in prison if convicted. Helped by the enrollment of first-time and transfer students into USU statewide campuses, the school's student headcount grew by about 3% from the fall 2023 numbers. Across USU's 30 education locations in its statewide system, first-time and transfer student numbers grew by 27%. Also, USU's Utah State Promise Scholarship ensures that Pell Grant-eligible students have their full tuition and fees covered, further supporting student enrollment. USU posted robust enrollment growth by working through problems with the U.S. Department of Education's rollout of the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. USU was selected to help improve the FAFSA application process, partnering with the Department of Education in the upcoming testing of the 2025-26 FAFSA. USU applicants will play a vital role. And a new legislative audit found a small number of signatures for nominating petitions in the Utah governor's race was accepted or rejected in error. The audit was released Tuesday. It said there were some errors in Utah's signature gathering verification process. Utah lawmakers asked legislative auditors to investigate the signatures on nominating petitions for 3 Republican candidates: Governor Spencer Cox, Representative John Curtis, and Attorney General candidate Derek Brown. State Representative Phil Lyman, who ran for governor and was defeated in the primary, released a series of posts on X calling Cox an illegal candidate. Lyman posted that, quote, Spencer Cox is an illegitimate candidate. The signatures that qualified him for the primary ballot have never been verified by an unbiased third party. The audit was not a forensic audit, and it was the Foxes auditing the hen house. Some of what Lyman posted there. The audit found a small percentage of signatures were rejected that should have been accepted. Others were accepted that should have been rejected. However, the report also showed each candidate met requirements to qualify for the ballot. KBNU weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. Take care of those spiders. Get a full exterior spray today from Logan Extermination, 752-8450. And we do have increasing clouds and rain, mainly after midnight tonight, low in the low 40s. Rain before 3 o'clock on Thursday, then showers and maybe a thunderstorm after 3. High temperature tomorrow in the mid-50s. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Roof Rescue is your local roofing specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
The newsmakers, the stories. Get it all here. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
This is Misty Hewitt, Chief Program Officer at CAPSA. At CAPSA, you matter. To every survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, I want you to know you matter. At CAPSA, we see you, we believe you, and we're here to help. Whether you're in an unsafe relationship or carrying the trauma of past abuse, you matter to us. CAPSA is a place where you are valued and supported. You're not alone. Learn more about CAPSA and how you matter at capsa.org.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the Getaway Guru. Morris Columbus Travel and Delta Vacations have partnered to give you the best sun and fun deals on the planet. Experience the local attractions of Mexico or just soak up the sun by the pool. After all, sometimes the best vacation is having nothing to do and all day to do it. Give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
The annual Cash Businesswomen's Conference is Wednesday, October 23rd at the Riverwoods Conference Center. This year's theme is Ignite Your Potential, Unlock the Leader Within. Keynote speakers are Julie Weber, Director of Leadership Development at Conservice, Elisa Garn, Solution Architect and Subject Matter Expert at SHRM, and Esther Lee Molyneux, Board President of Pause Wellness. The Cash Businesswomen's Conference is Wednesday, October 23rd at the Riverwoods. Register now at cashchamber.com. That's cashchamber.com.
We're all feeling the effects of poor decision-making in the Utah legislature. Poorly managed growth, housing prices have skyrocketed. We've got some of the lowest education funding in the country and often some of the worst air quality. We can do much better. I'm Patrick Belmont. I'm an independent running to represent you in the Utah legislature. I'm a water and energy expert, university educator, and dad. I've got a bold vision to lower our taxes, fix our housing problems, clean up our air and water, and support our teachers and kids. I'm asking for your vote. I'm Patrick Belmont, and I approve this message. Paid for by Belmont for Utah.
The Vertigo Roofing Repair Company, Ponzi and Ponzi Financial Consultants, the Catheter Hut, the all-you-can-stuff-in-your-pants buffet, the National Booger Museum, Jiffy Boob, Drive-Through Breast Augmentation Center.
There isn't a business out there that can't benefit from radio advertising.
Skin grafts and such.
Including yours.
The Tourniquet
Radio.
Shack.
This medium is huge.
Stinky Fingers Catering.
Learn about the power of radio at CashValleyMediaGroup.com.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, Hour 2 of today's show.
It's time for this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. Sutherland Institute, a conservative think tank based in Salt Lake City. They've been around for decades, and their goal is clear, to influence public policy in Utah. But they also do a lot of events that are meant to just share information, educate the public, and, of course, get people voting. That's a big focus of the Sutherland Institute. Regardless of your personal politics or political party affiliation, they want you to vote. And that's the foundation of this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. Our listeners get a sneak peek at the episode. It'll be available in its entirety at sutherlandinstitute.org. This week's sneak peek, though, is a really special one. Election integrity, election lies, the big lie, I've seen it called. But, over the last several years, since 2020, there have been those who have, attacked the integrity of our elections process nationally and here in Utah without evidence, is how it's always followed up, and that's true. But it has, unfortunately, raised questions. One tiny little silver lining of the misinformation, the lies, is that it has led to this massive voter education campaign in every state, where people in the Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State's offices all around the country, county clerks' offices as well, are going out of their way now to explain to people how everything actually works. And hopefully, a silver lining of all of this just silliness about the supposed stolen elections without evidence is people will understand more the technical side of elections, what it takes to actually run an election. That's something that maybe will increase turnout. My fingers are crossed. Like I say, this would be a silver lining on some of the most ridiculous things I've seen in all of my time covering politics in the last 4 years. And so we've got one candidate here in Utah right now making the conspiracy theories a specialty. It's just bizarre, but it would be worth it if in the end result is we see turnout increase above our average of 30% here in Utah. We'll see. But with that in mind, it's time for this week's episode where Sutherland Institute's Nick Dunn sits down with Lieutenant Governor Diedre Henderson, Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman, and Davis County Clerk Brian McKenzie to answer some of the most common questions they get about, well, exactly that, how elections work. Without further delay, it's this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas.
Very excited to introduce you to our guests, Lieutenant Governor of Utah, Diedre Henderson, Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman, and Davis County Clerk Brian McKenzie. Thanks to each of you for being with us on Defending Ideas and talking about this important issue. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
And I'm excited that the three of you, that it worked to get you all together, because I think there's something really powerful having the state's chief elections officer and you two who are administering this at the local level to really help our listeners understand kind of what is going on with some of the debates and controversy around election issues this year and in recent years, and what can we do about it? What can we do that's constructive? And I want to start off, Lieutenant Governor, because you have made a submission into the public dialogue on this issue, and I think a really important way, with a speech you gave recently, kind of a state of elections address that I kind of took it as, in some ways, to kind of set the record straight on some aspects of election security here in Utah. I want to start off by asking you, what would you say is the most important message from your speech? What's the one thing you want people to walk away with? And then why did you feel the need to give the speech right now?
Well, the one thing I really wanted people to understand is that our elections are secure, and the rhetoric surrounding elections that serves to undermine public trust and to create doubt is kind of a red flag that they need to be aware of. I also wanted to make sure that voters knew that there's some steps that they can take to ensure that their vote counts, and that they can learn the process, and filling that education gap. That unknown is a really essential part of taking responsibility for your own vote. They need to learn about the process and the systems that we have in place so that they can be confident that their vote counts.
The education gap, I want to touch on that for a second. That I have heard for years, I don't know where this statement came from initially, but previous bosses of mine have said that there's kind of this maxim that in absence of information, people create their own realities. So in this case, if they hear things or see things in the case of election administration and they don't know what the answer is or the full story, maybe they look for something. Is that right? Is that kind of what circumstance we're in right now?
Yes, absolutely. So also there's so much information out there. Every state does things differently. Every county, even to some degree, does things differently within our state. There are definitely some uniform things we do, but there's so much information out there and so many different places to get information. Most of it's bad information. And the problem is that the stuff that goes viral, the information that really gets people's attention is usually wrong. Outrage and absurdity, it gets a lot more traction than boring old truth and fact and reason. And that's why I kind of became alarmed that the stuff that's getting viral and going wild out there it's not true. We need to make sure that people have good information and recognize that often the good information, the reality is a lot less interesting than the absurdity and the outrage.
Well, then we're in the right place because we're talking with the folks who actually administer the stuff in Utah, and Clerk Chapman and Clerk McKenzie. I want to ask you, one of the things that the Lieutenant Governor mentioned in her speech the other day was that shocking story of the envelope that was sent to your office, but also kind of this notion that the folks who work in our election offices for years and years and years, right, going back as far as anyone can remember, just kind of did their job, did it well in relative anonymity. These are public servants who just want to do something important for our society. Have you seen a tone shift? Have you seen sort of that dynamic change where it feels like the work they do is different now because of this heightened environment we're in a negative way? Maybe Clerk Chapman, start with you.
Sure. During my tenure in the clerk's office, I have seen the magnifying glass be put on elections, what we're doing, the policies, the procedures that we have in place to ensure we are running safe and secure elections and following the law. I'm also seeing a lot of rhetoric, like Lieutenant Governor Henderson was talking about, and the dis and misinformation that people have. And one thing that I always do is encourage people to come down. I know I can speak for myself and the other 28 clerks. We are very proud of the policies and procedures that we have in place and the heroes that are working with us, like you said, that come back election after election after election. These are your old first grade teachers. These are people you go to church with. These are, people that you see in the grocery store that walk their dog by your house. These are our neighbors that are helping us administer elections. I want people to come and see what we're doing and why we're doing such a great job here in Utah.
In Davis County, what's your perspective there?
I've been in elections for nearly 20 years now, and the saying has been over that period of time, a successful election is one that doesn't make the front page. We have for decades administered elections very effectively, and honestly, we would only get some attention if we had made a mistake. That dynamic has shifted now. There is intense focus on the elections. And even when we're doing a phenomenal job with very few mistakes or very few errors, there's a lot of skepticism. Skepticism is challenging for us in the election field because as Clerk Chapman mentioned, we have teams of individuals. Hundreds, thousands of people across the state are working to make these elections successful. These are citizens from our community. There shouldn't be this weird separation of, well, it's the government. Well, no, it's not the government. It is your friends and neighbors and people that you do all sorts of events with during your regular normal life that are administering these elections and involved in this process.
Lieutenant Governor, one of the things you mentioned in your speech, and you articulated it at the beginning of this conversation as well, that, in fact, I think your quote from the speech was, Utah elections are secure and administered fairly, kind of full stop. In these recent years, with this sort of elevated focus and conversation that's been going on, if there are people who do have genuine questions or maybe genuine concerns, maybe if they're not in the category of just trying to sow doubt and division, but they're if they're in a perspective of, well, I saw something on the news about the last election, or I heard something on social media, and I don't understand that. Is that a security issue? Is that something we need to be worried about here in Utah? I want to, for a minute, kind of try to speak to those people and maybe give each of you a chance to say, if you were sitting down in the living room with somebody who, again, has genuine concerns or sort of earnest questions, they're just not sure, what's the message to them to sort of instill a confidence in Utah's election system? What's sort of the package of security protocols that if they understood, they'd say, okay, I get it, I feel better. Utah elections, I have trust in them now.
Well, I think first of all, if you have questions or doubt or don't understand something, that's okay. We expect that. We welcome questions. We want to help people understand what the process is. There are some people who just naturally trust things, and that's fine. There are some that are maybe a little bit more skeptical, and that's fine too. We want to help those people feel confident. Vote.utah.gov is a really great resource. That's our state website that has all sorts of resources, explanations on how voting works, how your ballot goes through the system, what checks and balances are in place to make sure that your vote will be counted and counted accurately. It also has other information, deadlines, other resources. You can go there. You can check your voter registration. You can register to vote. You can update your address. You can sign up to track your ballot. This is a key point right there. If you're worried that once you put your ballot in the drop box or you put it in the mail and you just don't have any idea if it's ever counted, well, you can know for sure that your ballot has been counted. And you can do that by going to vote.utah.gov. You can check the status of your ballot. And even more importantly, you can sign up to actually get notifications sent straight to your phone. You can get notifications that go straight to your phone to let you know when your clerk has mailed your ballot, when your clerk has received your ballot back, and when your clerk has counted your ballot.
That's one of the things that I think is compelling, is that as a voter in Utah, you can kind of own your own ballot, the process, to the extent that you can even decide how you turn it back in, right? You don't have to drop it in the mail. You can take it to a drop box. You can take it to a physical location. So maybe building on that kind of, you as the voter, you actually have more control and access to information than maybe people at times realize. Can we build on that plus security protocols? I mean, what are kind of the layers of things together to show that, our vote by mail system here in Utah, we've been doing it for a while, we do it well, folks like it, and it's secure.
We have chain of custody documents from the minute that we pick up the ballots from the drop boxes, from the mail. Using in Salt Lake County, we use uniformed sheriff's office sworn officers to pick up. From that to the seals that we have in place, we have layers upon layers upon layers of checks to make sure that everything is done fairly, accurately, and according to law.
That was, again, Nick Dunn of Sutherland Institute, conservative think tank in Salt Lake City, talking with, you heard their last Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman. Mixed in the conversation there, of course, Davis County Clerk Brian McKenzie, and the big guns, Utah Lieutenant Governor Diedre Henderson. The Lieutenant Governor's office in Utah serves as sort of what would be a Secretary of State in other states. They run the elections office overseeing elections. And I always like to point this out anytime we're talking about elections, but Cache Valley's, we're proud anytime Cache Valley native or Aggie gets an important job in the state. So the current governor, by the way, is an Aggie. But Ryan Cowley, who kind of heads up the elections office under the lieutenant governor's office mantle, is an Aggie. So, and also a very funny guy. So we'll have to get him back on. But thanks again to Nick Dunn for sending that along. It's important to get this information out, and great explanation of what happens behind the scenes, how elections are kept safe in Utah. Utah's been voting by mail for about 13 years now, and there have been no big problems. That's something to be proud of. We're doing something right. In fact, other states who dabbled with vote by mail in the pandemic have been looking at Utah as a model for adopting it in their own state on a permanent basis, like we have for more than a decade. So If you want to hear the full episode, you can do so at sutherlandinstitute.org. Thanks again to Nick Dunn and crew for sending along that sneak preview for our listeners. And we'll be back with some election timeline information, everything you need to know about the important dates to maybe put on your calendar between now and Election Day. That's following up this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. We'll be back with that right after this.
Whether you're a farmer working the fields, a homeowner tackling weekend projects, or a contractor building the next big thing, you need a Kubota machine that works as hard as you do. And Cash Equipment is home to all your Kubota equipment, service, and parts needs. From plowing fields and clearing land to digging trenches and moving material, come see why Cash Equipment and Kubota are the choice of champions on the farm, at home, and on the job site. Cash Equipment in Hyde Park and online at cashequipment.com.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Bookending that Sutherland Institute Defending Ideas conversation there with the Lieutenant Governor and two clerks, Davis County and Salt Lake County clerks, joining to talk about how elections are kept secure here in Utah, why we have this great track record. For more than 13 years, we've been voting by mail, and there has never been a big problem. That's impressive. Few states can say that about any method of voting. So it was fun to hear them talk a little bit about how that's done in Utah and why we end up this gold standard that other states are now looking at to borrow our model. As they dabbled with vote by mail in the pandemic, some states didn't have a good experience. So they're looking at Utah saying, okay, how did you make this work? Fun conversation. If you want to hear the whole thing, sutherlandinstitute.org, just click on Defending Ideas, and you can hear the whole hour-long conversation. Just a sneak peek there for our listeners. And before we move on from elections, because on the other side, we had a great question from a listener that gave me an idea, and I did some research, and I've been on the phone with attorneys. Okay, I've not been on the phone. I've been texting attorneys, and I'll even confess a little bit more. Some of these attorneys are lawmakers whose cell phone numbers I had because we've had them on the show as guests. But I started texting and made a few calls to answer a simple question. A listener took her grandkids to a haunted house here in Utah, and they all signed a waiver. And she was curious, can they really not sue if one of them is hurt? Now, no one was hurt in her group. She's clear about that. But can they really not sue? She sent a picture of the waiver along, and it sounds like, yeah, no matter what happens inside this haunted house, you can't sue us. Well, the reality, I learned, is a little more complex than that. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the news. Before we get to that, though, here are the important election dates you maybe want to make note of. I mentioned, of course, that ballots have gone out, and that means that drop boxes are also unlocked at this point. So if you don't want to put it in the mail, you can drop it off at a drop box. That is now until the deadline which is the day before Election Day, and then they will be opened again on Election Day. Now, some of these drop boxes are, as I understand it, are 24 hours. Others have open and closed times on the drop box. So I'll run through some of these. Again, your ballot should be on its way to you, if not already on your kitchen table. I got mine yesterday. So here are some Dropbox notes for you to remember. Cache County Administration Building in the west side of the parking lot, that Dropbox is open 24 hours. Inside the Cache County Building, of course, there is a Dropbox. That's only open regular hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Out in Malga Town Hall, east side of the parking lot, open 24 hours, Dropbox there. Clarkston Town Hall, also one which is open 24 hours. The Cornish Town Hall has a Dropbox inside the town building, But that is open by appointment only. So if you're in Cornish, maybe drop it in the mail. A little bit easier there. Hyde Park City Office, they have a drop box on the east side of the parking lot there at the Hyde Park office, which is 113 East Center in Hyde Park. That is open Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., that drop box. Hiram City has one on the northwest side of the city office parking lot there. It is kind of behind the Elite Hall there in Hiram, and you can circle through that parking lot easily. That one's unlocked 24 hours. And by unlocked, I mean the slot where you can drop your ballot in is unlocked, not that the whole thing is unlocked. These are actually, I've seen some test videos. These are impossible to break into. But the slot is open 24 hours when I say unlocked. Same with Lewiston, south side of the Lewiston city office, next to the theater entrance. They say 24 hours on that one. Utah State University, east side of USU Welcome Center, next to the USU Credit Union. There's a drop box there, open 24 hours. Mendon City, southeast corner of the street side front parking lot area, open 24 hours. Millville city office, 24 hours. Newton city office, 24 hours. Nibley city office, North Logan library, both of those locations open 24 hours. Nibley's is in the parking lot of the office building there on the east side. Newton, north side of the building. Logan library is on the west side of the parking lot. Paradise, inside Town Hall, there is a drop box, but that is only open 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., which are also the Town Hall off hours. Because it's inside, of course, they can't have that open 24 hours. So if you're in Paradise, maybe drop it in the mail, a little easier. Providence, open 24 hours, east side of the parking lot at the city office building there. And the last few here, Richmond Park Community Center on the east side of the building. There's a drop box open 24 hours. River Heights City Office parking lot open 24 hours. And Smithfield City parking lot on the east side open 24 hours. And finally, Trenton Town Hall. Inside Town Hall hours there are Monday and Wednesday only, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So maybe if you're in Trenton, drop it in the mail like Paradise and Cornish. And finally, Wellsville City Office. Between Wellsville City Office and the fire station, there is a drop box that is open 24 hours. Now, you don't have to live in these cities to use the drop boxes in these cities. So if you happen to be driving by one, you don't want to drop your ballot in the mail, or you want to make sure that it goes into a drop box, which will be collected each day rather than through the U.S. Postal Service processing. Those drop boxes are available, and a full list that I just read to you can be seen at cashcounty.gov/elections. One final thing to get here. Again, drop boxes unlocked as of yesterday as ballots start going out. Ballot processing will be happening Monday through Friday, starting now until Election Day. That happens 10 to 4 p.m. as needed if they have the ballots to process, basically. And that is at the Ballot Processing Center at the Logan Cache Airport, North Airport Drive there. Voter registration deadline, October 25th at 5 p.m. So up until October 25th at 5 p.m., you can change your voter registration, double-check the address is correct, update, switch parties, whatever it is you want to do. Register for the first time, and that is October 25th at 5 p.m., the deadline on that. And then in-person early voting will begin October 29th and run through November 1st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Cache County Administration Building. And finally, the postmark deadline for mailing your ballot, November 4th. Monday, November 4th. Ballots must be received with a postmark of Monday, November 4th to count as a valid ballot. And the receive deadline and drop box deadline, of course, Election Day, November 5th at 8 p.m. So you can use the drop boxes or drop them off in person at the clerk's office November 5th at up until 8 p.m. when polls close. So that is, again, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day, but every day before then, drop boxes are an option, and you can drop it in the mail up until that day before the election, November 4th, to get that postmark before post offices close. So there you have it. And then hopefully we know who won. We have up until November 12th before the audit is required. So we'll see if any of these races are close, but that's everything you need to know about the election. And again, all of that information available at cashcounty.gov/elections, where you can also, on the left-hand side there, click Track My Ballot and sign up for the ballot tracking service. It lets you know every time your ballot is processed through a different thing, and that it can be reassuring for a lot of people. So that's a free service of the state, by the way. Thank you, Representative Dan Johnson, who championed that one. So, all right, on the other side, the legal liability disclaimer or waiver you sign or agree to by buying a ticket and entering a haunted house says you can't sue us for anything, basically. Is that true? Well, what a bunch of attorneys I pestered all day long via text and phone call had to say about that. After this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News is brought to you by Cardall's Insulation. The Cache Community Food Pantry has held an open house today and also a ribbon cutting to celebrate the opening of their new multi-million-dollar 9,240 square foot warehouse behind their current location at 259 South Main in Logan. Matt Whitaker, the executive director of the Cache Community Food Pantry, is excited about having more space. The new warehouse will have heated shelves, more refrigerator and freezer space, and a clean room to repack bulk donations. The extra space will also allow the pantry to serve more clients in the region. The number of people needing help is increasing and donations are decreasing. Whitaker hopes that will change when people see the need. He said that in September 2022, they provided food and services to 826 qualified families. In 2024, they have 1,321 qualified families that depend on them for food. The reason for the growth in clients right now is the economy, the cost of food and other commodities, and stagnant wages. Whitaker screens all the clients to make sure they qualify for the pantry's assistance. He is seeing more migrant families, people with disabilities, and even more middle-class families that just don't have the income to make it to the end of the month. A Cottonwood Heights woman who was arrested on suspicion of her husband's murder after he disappeared in September was officially charged with the first-degree felony along with 8 other felonies. Jennifer Gledhill was charged Tuesday with the murder of Utah National Guardsman Matthew Johnson, as well as obstruction of justice, drug possession with the intent to distribute, witness tampering, and desecration of a human body. She was arrested after an informant contacted police telling them Gledhill had admitted to shooting Johnson while he slept, sharing details about what happened to his body afterwards. The district attorney's office identified the informant as a man with whom Gledhill was having an extramarital relationship. The 8-page charges state that the Utah National Guard was going to list Johnson as AWOL when he failed to show up for work on September 23rd, which the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office stated was very unusual. Gledhill originally told police that Matthew had not been seen or heard from since September 20th when they had an argument at their home in Cottonwood Heights. On September 28th, the informant contacted police to tell them Gledhill admitted to murdering Johnson in his sleep. He said he had not reported it earlier because he was not sure that Gledhill was telling the truth. KBNU weather brought to you by Roof Rescue, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry from minor repairs to complete roof replacement. Call 435-999-4268 or go to roofrescueusa.com. Rain in the forecast late tonight, low in the low 40s. Rain before 3 o'clock on Thursday, and then showers and possibly a thunderstorm after 3 on Thursday. Much cooler, high temperature in the mid-50s. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Lawyers for Lyle and Eric Menendez holding a news conference outside the Los Angeles County Courthouse, calling for the brothers to be resentenced. They were convicted of murdering their parents 35 years ago.
Today we know better. We know that abuse has long-lasting effects, and victims of trauma sometimes act in ways that are very difficult to understand.
Brothers' Aunt Joan, new evidence of chronic sexual and physical abuse by their fathers come out. Presidential campaign less than 3 weeks from finishing. Democrat Kamala Harris, Republican Donald Trump doing interview blitzes. At least 3 people died and 4 were critically injured after a Mississippi bridge with workers busy demolishing it collapsed today, says the Simpson County Sheriff. Former One Direction boy band star Liam Payne is dead after falling from the 3rd floor of his hotel room in Argentina, according to state police. He was 31. This is ABC News.
Everyone has been asking me, hey, radio guy, what's the forecast for winter? Well, spoiler alert, it's going to be cold, but there is something you can do. Call Cardall's Insulation. With better insulation, you'll be amazed at how much warmer your home is. Get this, as much as 35% of your home's heat is lost through your walls and attic. And if your home was built before 1980, it's even worse. And right now there's a tax credit up to $1,200 for upgrading your insulation. Call Cardall's Insulation for all the details. 755-5012. That's 755-5012.
I'm Nancy Huntley, and I'm running for Utah Senate District 2 in Cache and Rich counties. We live in divisive times, but our differences shouldn't divide us. Let's get back to a time when neighbors could disagree and still help each other with the harvest. I will listen to everyone, conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, and work with you for the future of northern Utah. I ask you to vote for Nancy Huntley on your November ballot. Paid for by Nancy for Utah.
Fall is upon us and the leaves are changing colors. That means it's time to hit the canyons in style. So pack up the whole family for a drive and go see all the sights in the comfort and safety of a new Murdoch Hyundai. Drive in and receive 1.99% for 5 years on the 2025 Tucson. And every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty, and owner's assurance. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, and Murray, and online at murdochhyundai.com.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 10/31/24.
Welcome back to KVN News for the people. I love when listeners give me ideas for segments because we all get stuck in our rut. And I realized that what is super interesting to me, I mean, I've seen the glassed over eyes, mouth slack look on some of my friends and family's face when I start talking about politics or something that's really interesting and engaging to me. But I'm realistic. I know, not everyone follows politics like normal people follow sports. So I try to keep myself in check. But it's still on this show sometimes. It's really nice to have a listener just throw us a curveball, and this was definitely one of those. Listener emailed in a couple of days ago, and over the weekend had taken her grandkids to a haunted farm / corn maze. And she happened to notice as they were leaving, or the next day or something, she doesn't say, but afterwards, she noticed that on the back of their ticket, there was this disclaimer, this waiver, basically, that said, by buying this ticket and entering, you're giving up your right to, you're basically absolving us, the owner operator of this haunted house corn maze, of any liability. And she said she was surprised by the phrasing, because it basically said, she sent a picture along of the back of the ticket, the waiver, and I read it. And this one reads like, hey, no matter what happens here, we're not responsible. You can't sue us. So I got curious about that, as she was. She said, is this real? I mean, is this binding? If something happened, if there was gross negligence or something like that, could we really not sue? And I was curious. So keep in mind, nothing happened. She said they had a great experience at this haunted house corn maze thing. She was just curious about the waiver on the ticket. And so, and this wasn't in Cache Valley, by the way. This was in Weber County. But I got curious. So I reached out to, I got thinking, okay, what attorneys do I know that I can... that we're going to give up some of their very valuable time, valuable to them at least. They make a lot of money per hour, to talk with me about something I'm just simply curious about. And then I realized there are quite a few lawmakers in the legislature, and we've had most of them on the show before. And so I started texting lawmakers who are attorneys. And a couple of them gave me some great information. They also put me in touch with a few other attorneys who kind of specialize in this kind of thing. I was able to text and email and even one phone call with an attorney, take some notes. And here's what I found out, basically. A lot of really interesting stuff. But here's what I found out. So you do not have to sign, first off, to agree to a liability waiver, you don't have to sign anything. Some places, I've seen this, they'll actually ask you as you're buying your ticket to sign a liability waiver. Or if you're buying them there will be something that pops up maybe on the touch screen of the kiosk. Like the Nightmare on 13th place has one like this. You're buying tickets at a kiosk there or at the desk talking to a person. They'll actually ask you to sign it. But sometimes you're buying online and it's just some fine print. Other times, there's nothing said about any of this, but if you look on the back of your ticket or maybe even see a posted sign at the venue that will say something along these lines. And yes, it basically makes it sound like no matter what happens here, because it's a haunted house and there are sometimes sharp things and scary things and unstable floors and stairs in the dark, all these things that are part of a haunted house attraction, you can't sue us for a thing, no matter what happens here. So long story short, I found out that is not the case. These waivers sound as if they go that far, but in court, it wouldn't hold up in a situation where there is gross negligence. But I found some really interesting stories that came along. But I was sent by one of these attorneys who happens to be a state lawmaker. He sent along this essay, basically, that was written, and apparently is taught in classes by a University of Pennsylvania law school professor, David Hoffman. And he wrote this lengthy thing that he teaches in class, a liability law class that he teaches, because he said the haunted house is the perfect example of the squishiness, the gray areas that exist in liability law state by state and federal. So he said, basically, if you're going into a haunted house, you're assuming the risk, like you do when you go to a baseball game, of getting hit by a ball. If you go to a baseball game, by buying that ticket, by sitting in the stadium, you are assuming the risk of maybe getting hit by a pop fly or a home run. That's the risk you're assuming. You might not know that's the risk you're assuming, but in court, because of the ticket, because of the liability law in the state, because of the waiver you're signing by purchasing a ticket and entering the stadium, you're agreeing to assume that risk. And he said haunted houses are very similar. There are some examples. In 1996, a family of a 10-year-old girl sued a haunted attraction in Louisiana because one of their youngsters ran into a wall that was covered in black plastic sheeting, and the lighting in the room was poor after an employee popped up and scared her. Well, that family lost in court. A judge said, look, you went there to be scared. And being in the dark, being confused about where the exit is, this is part of the experience, part of the attraction. These attractions are designed for you not to know where the walls are sometimes and for people to pop up and scare you. So, the appeals court, they lost. They appealed. The appeals court backed up the original judge and said, look, these risks are understood to be a part of the place decorated for the purpose of frightening guests. In 2011, a man in San Diego filed a lawsuit after walking out of a haunted house, being surprised by an employee who revved a chainsaw without a chain, hopefully, at him. And it scared him. He turned to run away and fell and broke both wrists. He sued, saying, look, I was leaving the attraction when this happened. Court said, sorry, you were there to be scared. Mission accomplished. Sorry you broke your wrists. So commonly, this is how it falls down. I was sent along by a couple of these attorneys' stories where one woman in Pontiac, Michigan, sued a big company that runs a whole chain of haunted houses in Michigan called Erebus Haunt Attractions. And in 2014, she sued and got them to settle for about $500,000 after, she was there with her kids at this haunted house. A cast member in another room backed up into a wall by accident, and that temporary wall fell, knocked this woman from Michigan down, and she fractured her leg and was cut up pretty bad by some of the sharp things on the wall. She sued, and the judge said, yeah, the walls shouldn't fall down. Despite your legal liability waiver on your ticket, you have to settle with this woman. They settled for about $500,000. Erebus printed a disclaimer on that admission ticket like you'd see at most of them, saying, we are not liable for anything that happens here. Well, the judge said, if it's negligence, if a wall isn't secured, you're pretty liable. And that woman won. So, short version of all this, again, no one is forcing you to visit a Halloween scare maze or a haunted house. If you do so, you're agreeing to be scared. You're agreeing to the risks involved, falling down, bumping into things, maybe even a medical incident that comes from being scared. That's another story that was passed along to me. You are assuming that responsibility. The real waiver is you're giving them your money to go in and be scared. So barring grossly negligent hazards, you are assuming all the risk, regardless of whether you sign the waiver, whether the waiver is printed on the back of your ticket, whether it's posted on a tiny little sign in fine print in the dark at the entrance of the attraction. You're assuming the risk unless they are grossly negligent. Interesting to know. If you want to see some of these stories, though, I only read a few, but some of the stories of reasons people have sued haunted houses over the years sent along to me by attorneys. I have posted them all in a Google document linked on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVN News.
The American Festival Chorus and Orchestra is pleased to honor one of the greatest composers of the 20th century, Gustav Holst, in this, the 150th anniversary of his birthday, Saturday, October 19th. The evening will celebrate some of his greatest chorale and orchestral works, including his most famous work, The Planets. Joining the choir and orchestra will be guest conductors, USU Music Fellow Associate Dr. Giyas Sadia and USU Master Student Mitchell Kukura. Reserve your tickets today.
Are you in need of excellent surgical care? Budge Clinic General Surgery offers the future of surgery with state-of-the-art robotic-assisted procedures. From cancer treatments to surgical needs, they've got you covered. Call Budge Clinic General Surgery today, 435-716-1950, to schedule a consultation and experience the best possible outcome. Trust Doctors Anderson, Marshall, McKenna, and Peterson, the experts at Budge Clinic General Surgery, helping people live the healthiest lives possible.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests, and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River, and I went and saw him, and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER. with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Bank of Utah says thank you. Thanks to those who voted for Bank of Utah in the Best of Northern Utah contest, their third gold medal in a row for Best Bank in Northern Utah. Whether you need a personal checking or savings account, need to finance your dream business, auto or home, or are looking for wealth management or investment services, Bank of Utah is your bank. Find out how Bank of Utah can serve you by going to bankofutah.com. Member FDIC and MLS number 422914.
Thank you for choosing Solar Glass and Tint, gold winner for Auto Glass in the 2024 Best of Northern Utah. Winning is a testament to our commitment to excellence. Thank you for your support.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Wrapping up with some odd, funny news to send you on your way into the evening. And this is possibly one of the oddest news stories I've ever found. The investigation has been launched into allegations of cheating at the World Conquer Festival. I didn't even know what this was. This is a real thing that happens in the UK, though, every year. And the World Conquer Championship took place Tuesday this week in London. What is a Conquer competition? This is basically they tie chestnuts to strings, and then they swing the chestnuts on the strings and try to crush each other's chestnuts. It's apparently a lot harder than it sounds and takes some skill and is a serious sport, allegedly. But at the World Conquer Championships on Tuesday, veteran player Dave Jackins, 82, won the men's tournament. But organizers said an investigation has been launched after credible claims were brought forward that he may have cheated. The allegations of cheating were raised by the man he beat in the final round, Alistair Johnson Ferguson, who lost the men's final to Jackins after his conquer was, quote, disintegrated in one hit. Johnson Ferguson thought that was a little suspicious, and he accused Jackins of using a steel chestnut. And apparently he had some evidence to suggest that may have been the case. What happens next, I have absolutely no idea, but an investigation is underway into allegations of cheating at the World Conquer Festival or competition, which took place in London. Yeah, I don't know what all of this is about or what happens next, but it sounds pretty serious, right? Okay, that is our time for today. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us. Barbara Tidwell, Logan City Mayor Holly Danes, Nick Dunn and crew at Sutherland. Covered a lot of ground. I hope you'll be with us tomorrow. More candidate spotlights. We'll talk to Nancy Huntley, candidate for state senate, tomorrow on the show. And, of course, this week's episode of the For the People Theater Hour with Charlie Schill. That's tomorrow on For the People. Dave Ramsey next.